A plot item that's featured in many motion pictures, especially action motion pictures, is martial arts. Jean-Claude Van Damme, among others, have done wonderful movies based on their proficiency in the martial arts. Well, our next guest is also proficient in martial arts. He's also a published author, one of your neighbors here in Laguna Woods as well. Gordon Richiusa joins us on the program today. Gordon, welcome back to Channel 6.
Thanks for having me.
Good to have you with us today. You have written your first novel. This is it. Not a first book for you. You've written other things in the past, but they've all been, shall we say, more academic or otherwise.
Or for other people.
Or for other people. This is your first novel published under your name.
Correct.
Right. And you utilize your background in martial arts to some extent in this book, to a large extent. Talk to us about the title, what the title means, what that name means, and why that's a significant statement.
Well, Shidoshi, translated in one way, is the four ways of the corpse. That's the subtitle there. And really the book is about how people take words. We see this happening, for instance, in this country today. People take words and phrases and original intent and then twist it to their own ends and means. Mm-hmm. In Japan, the ninja were originally the secret police force of Prince Regent Shotoku, who went everywhere else except for Japan because he couldn't trust his own people, and got warriors together to...
so mercenaries.
Right.
Or paid soldiers, which of course is one of the controversial stories of the current conflicts in our country, using
Correct.
other paid companies to do some of the security work.
Right. So at that time, of course, after he got things under control, then he really couldn't trust his police force anymore either. Mm-hmm. And then they were scattered to the winds, and they ended up creating these two different factions.
And they've actually become, to some extent, the criminal element.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. There's a lot of influence in all aspects.
And is that still the case in modern Japan today?
Well, many people say yes. The Yakuza, for instance, are direct descendants in many ways of the ninja clans.
We see in the movies the people all dressed in black, and they even have their face covered up, and they jump on buildings and do all kinds of things. Is that a reality?
Well, there are, in fact, people who train to do exactly that. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, for instance, but in the book of the Shaolin, at the Shaolin Temple in China, there are training techniques which teach you how to do things exactly like that. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Let's talk a bit about your involvement in martial art. You just received a recent award, been made a member and appointed to the Hall of Fame. A beautiful glass trophy here that they presented you with. You've been doing martial arts for a good portion of your life.
Almost 50 years, next April. In fact, you mentioned Jean-Claude Van Damme's film, and the movie Bloodsport, which was the movie that broke Jean-Claude Van Damme out as a major star, right, was based on Frank Dukes, who has written a back cover review on my book, because I taught for him for many years. I ran his studios for him for many years. And people, I think, are probably going to say that this book is based on our lives, and in fact, it's fiction.
Now, like a lot of good books, you take the reader around the world. Basically, you start off in Los Angeles, which of course is familiar to our folks here in the area. You go over to Okinawa, there's a lot of, I guess, martial arts training going on in that part of the world.
Right.
And you end up on a Hopi reservation. Now, I understand you've done some background work in the past dealing with Native Americans as well, so you have a knowledge of that culture.
Right. Well, my professional experience, besides being a martial arts instructor, is also to be an English teacher. I teach here at Saddleback, for instance, writing and composition classes and script writing. But everything I do has always been at the foundation of martial arts, because even the website that I created, which is about communication, is based on the principles that I learned from martial arts training, for instance. My thesis, my master's thesis, was written on a man named Carlos Castaneda, who is alleged to have trained with a Yaqui Indian sorcerer for many years. And I did a lot of research with Native Americans. Many of my instructors were Native Americans. I've been privileged to be involved in Sundance ceremonies, for instance, and I trained for many years in some of the other esoteric.
Interesting
Thanks.
cross-cultural, Native Americans, Asian culture, all blended together, and certainly something that many Americans have either adopted one or the other, even as part of their lifestyle.
Right.
And you basically blended it all together with the westernization. The book really deals with all those cultures in the book, and you even end up with some people. Now, how does the martial arts work with the Native Americans? Do many Native Americans practice martial arts?
Well, they have their own warrior clans, obviously, and that's really one of the major theme here is that people have decided to follow strategies and plans and rules and constitutions that they really don't understand the origins of. And we have a very unique experience here in the United States because we basically take things from everywhere and we try to put it together.
Yeah. Some have called us the melting pot, others have called us the salad bowl. I'm not sure which is true, but we'll leave that to the anthropologists and the sociologists, perhaps. Interesting book. It sounds like something a lot of people would like to read, a bit about all these different cultures blended together with the story of communication and how a word can be misinterpreted. And I believe it's some of these stories go back 300 years. Some of these family feuds, almost like the feuds we hear about in this country, these have gone back for 300 years in some cases.
Right, exactly. And in fact, that is how I met Frank Dukes. I was writing for Black Belt Magazine, and I had been assigned to do an article, and I called up on the phone, found him. He told me this story basically in its raw form.
Where's this book available?
It's available through all sources, but it will be actually on the stands here at Borders locally by Monday, they told me.
Excellent,
yesterday.
excellent. That's great. Next project for you?
My next project is, one of them, my writing project, is working on a book called The Panda Chronicles. And it's about a real-life character, Rico Rose, who was a police officer for LAPD undercover, and he actually writes the introduction for this book.
One book leads to the next. That's, what happened on there. Sounds like an interesting story. If you'd like to find out more, you can contact Gordon. He's right here in Laguna Woods Village, or check with the local bookstores and get your copy of this very interesting book. Again, a combination of cultures and dealing with communication, something we all want to talk about these days. Gordon, a good pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for being with us today.
Thanks, Jeffrey.
Lots going on in your busy community. We'll be back with more right after this brief time out. Stay with us.